All right, everyone. So let's get started with our session 10. So today we're going to be talking about securing and sharing Windows resources. Okay, and let's get started with this. Okay, just a few course announcements before we get started. Okay, so if you still don't have access to our virtual lab, guys, I highly recommend that you should contact one of your instructors in order for you to get the invitation link to our virtual labs. And that's very useful because it's going to allow you to do pretty much every single test that you need to do for this course. Okay. If you don't have access to the virtual lab, however, you do have access to your own computer and you have Windows 10 Pro or any other Windows version that allows you to access a virtualization tool, that's all you need. Okay, for this course as well. Once again, you need an email to access the link. So if you want to have access to the virtual lab, just contact one of your instructors. It could be Robert or Daniel, and just send us an email message with your email address saying that you want to have access to the virtual lab, and we can just provide that to you. Okay? It is very useful if you don't have access to a Windows operating system machine. It is also useful if you're not able to finish project 1, 2, 3, and 4 because you don't have access to a certain machine. And it's also useful if you want to get some hands-on practice using a cloud solution. Okay. In today's lecture, we actually going to do some Prac by using our virtual lab. Okay. So I highly recommend that after we finish this lecture, that you have a go and try to do it yourself within your own lab. And if you have any issues, just tell one of your instructors and we'll be glad and we're here to help you out. Okay? So let's get started. Today's objectives. What are we going to be talking today? So today we basically want to talk about ways that you can secure a Windows PC using some of the Windows tools that we have available in our local computers. Okay? We're also going to discuss AAA services. Just gonna explain a little bit about AAA. And keep in mind that this AAA is gonna pursue you for your entire IT career. Okay, AAA services are a very important tool for you to deploy authentication services. Okay, we're gonna see more details further down the slides. Okay. But what else we want to do today? We also want to share and secure files and folders on a network. We're gonna learn how to do that. We're also gonna do a Prac, and yep. What else? We're gonna learn a few best practices that we can do in order to secure sharing, and we also going to support network resources using Active Directory. Okay. We actually this last topic we're not gonna talk too much. We're just going to do a basic understanding on Active Directory and network resources, okay? Because you're actually going to learn deeply about Active Directory when you do an enterprise level course. Um, and what else? Next slide then. So securing Windows PC. Why should you care about securing your network resources? This is the first question that you might be asking yourself. Why would I care about securing my system? Why would I care about hardening my computer? And here are a few answers to your question. One of them is just basically to protect your files, your folders, and resources. The other one is to protect your system functions as well. Because of course, if you get your system hacked and things like that, you're gonna lose your system functions. You're not gonna have the availability that you need in all of your systems. Okay. What else can you do? You can also maintain your privacy as well. You're going to prevent unauthorized access to your resources. So you will prevent hackers getting hold of your information, getting hold of your photos and things like that. Okay, your family photos and blah blah blah. Okay, you're also going to ensure access to authenticated users. Okay, so that's all we want to do to protect our systems, and we're going to have a look at in which ways we can do that. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about AAA services. Okay, when we talk about AAA, guys, we're actually not talking about a single thing, but we're actually talking about three things that work together with the same goal. And the goal is to basically protect access to a certain resource. Okay, so when we talk about AAA basically means that you are taking care of authorization, authentication, and accounting. Okay, when we talk about authentication, what does that mean? So basically, authentication just means that you can prove who you say you are. Okay, and that can be done through many ways. And one of the most used ways is basically just telling me something that only you know. For example, a password, or only you know, only you are supposed to know. Okay, so basically, by doing that, by providing your username and password key, you basically proving to me that you are the person that you say you are. Okay. Authorization. So authorization just basically means that if I'm an operating system, I'm just gonna check my database and I'll see if I should allow you access to certain resources or not. So when I authorize you to do something, I'm just basically checking everything that have been previously configured, uh, and I'll just make sure you only have access to everything that you are supposed to have access. Okay. Um, Accounting. So we're finally here talking about accounting now. So accounting just basically gives you means of tracking changes that are being done, and that might be timestamps. It might register the date that a file was modified, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's basically just keeping track of everything that was done. Okay, we're gonna see a little bit more about these later. All right. So just one observation here, guys, before we finish this slide, is that you should always assign a password to an account. Okay, don't leave an account without a password, and that's obvious. And why is that? Because if there's no password configured, you don't need a password to get in. Okay, and that means your authentication is gonna fail. All right, because the person just needs to know the username in order to access the resources. So in order to do that, just give users permission to change afterwards. So basically, when you create an account, as a best practice, assign a password to the account. Okay, just at least make it the least secure by assigning a password. Okay, if you don't assign a password at all, that means you're not secure at all. All right, your system is faulty. Someone that takes hold of a username is able to log in into the system and have access to what they're not supposed to have access to. All right. Strong password. So what does a strong password mean, guys? What does that mean to be safe with a password? Okay. So we have a few guidelines that the book gives us in order to set up a secure password. Okay. And one of those is that you should never, guys, assign an easily guessable password. Okay. And why is that? Of course, that's because if it's easily guessable, if it's related to something which is publicly available, so for example, you have a Facebook account and your date of birth is widely available on the internet and people can take hold of that very easily, you should never use your date of birth as your password. All right? As a best practice, just don't do it. And why is that? Because it's easily guessable, okay? Someone can just get the information about your date of birth, get the information about whatever it is that is in your publicly available profile, and they can do that and they can take hold of that in order to guess your password, okay? Another thing, guys, just try to use difficult passwords, okay? If you use a password that can be easily cracked, and by easily cracked I mean a password which is too short, okay? A password which uses words, a password which uses parts of your name, those are definitely easy to crack passwords, okay? And why is that? Because a hacker can easily take hold of that information and try to use that in order to guess your password or in order to feed a system that is going to create passwords based on the information provided. Okay, so a few things that the book tells us to do. So we should just basically follow a certain criteria, and that criteria means that we should use 16 character or more in our passwords. We should combine uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, and we should use at least one symbol. Okay? Do not use consecutive letters or numbers, adjacent keyboard keys, your signing name, words in other language, things like that. Okay? Just don't do it. And why is that? Once again, because it's easily guessable. Do not use the same password for more than one system. Guys, do I even have to mention why? Of course not, right? Because if one of your passwords get compromised, the hacker will basically take hold of all of the other accounts that have the same password. Okay? So just make sure you try to use different passwords. Make sure you have different passwords for different types of accounts, and so on and so forth. Okay? So the most important thing here is that I'd like to highlight is complexity is key. Okay? Make sure you have a password which is complex enough. Okay? Follow the guidelines, and we're actually going to see a way that we can just basically generate a random password. Now let's talk about local group policy and local security policy editors. Okay? So group policy just basically means a way that we can pretty much configure policies that can be deployed to a certain group of users. Okay? When we talk about group policy in general, we're basically talking about the Active Directory solutions, and that basically just works with Windows domain services. Okay? If you have a server environment. All right. So for those of you guys that are also studying NOS, Network Operating Systems, and are also doing other enterprise level courses, that you need to configure a domain controller, that you need to configure a domain, that you need to configure the group policies, you actually see every single detail about this in those specific courses that you take. Okay. But what we're interested here is the local policies and the local security policies. Okay. So basically, the local group policy just contains a subset of policies in group policy that apply only to the local computer or local user. Okay, so by the name, it just means it's local to that specific machine that you're configuring. Okay, uh, we have on the other hand that group policy in general, the one above that we will just mention, can be applied to the entire domain. It can be applied to many machines that are joined to a certain domain. Okay. Local security policy, guys. So local security policy is very similar to the local group policy. However, the local security policy is more focused into security solutions. Okay, it's more focused into making sure that you apply the most secure policies to your local machine. Okay, it can be located within administrative tools and control panel. Okay, we'll see more details later on. So here we just have a snapshot of our local group policy editor. Okay, as you guys can see, we have two groups of policies. We have our computer configuration and we have our username on the left. Okay, if we expand that, we actually have every single thing that we can configure in regards to our user configuration and our computer configuration. Okay, as you guys can see, each one of them, they have different things that we can configure, different things that we can tune in our system. Okay, when we talk about group policy, guys, I like to think about group policy as an amazing tool that allows us to customize Windows. Okay, so for example, you can come to the control panel policies, and you can just basically deploy a policy that will set a specific wallpaper. You can configure a shared printer. You can configure the password policy, and so on and so forth. You can even configure a shortcut that you want to have in the desktop. You can do so many things. You can customize your system as you wish. Okay. Once again, this is very similar to the group policy that we find in our domain systems. So if you're doing the enterprise level courses that I just mentioned, you see that you have a similar group policy editor within a server. However, those policies can be applied to specific users. Those policies can be applied to specific organizational units which are part of your domain, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, the local security policies. What do we have inside our local security policies? So our local security policies, as I said, they are focused in hardening our system. Okay, and by hardening, I just mean that we want to reduce the risks. We want to reduce the potential exploitations that our system can have. So we want to protect it. Okay, and we want to protect it as much as we can. Okay, so everything which is related to security policies and everything which is related to tuning our system to make it more secure is located in here in our local security policies. Okay, we can set up account policies, we can set up password complexity policies, we can set up the software restriction policies, which softwares are restricted, have been restricted to execute. Application control policies as well. We can control all of our applications and so on and so forth. Okay. User authentication. So we need to know, guys, it's very important when we learn about an operating system, we need to learn how to make sure we can authenticate a user, okay? A local user in this case. Okay, and we can manage our user credentials as well. We can change passwords, we can delete, we can edit passwords, delete and edit usernames, and things like that. Okay, if we use a user credential, manage user credentials snap in, I'll just show you in a second how it looks like, but it just basically looks like something like this. Okay, within our manage your credentials tab, which is inside our control panel user accounts, we can basically just have a look at what are the credentials that are saved within our system. We can see all the web credentials saved in our system as well. We can see the Windows credentials saved in our system as well. Okay, this is very useful, guys, if you want to check every single credentials that you have saved in your system. Okay, you can verify which website address requested that specific credential and so on and so forth. Okay, as you guys can see here, I have this one here that is showing up here in my web credentials, and that's just basically, as you guys can see, was saved by Asphalt 9 Legends. It's just a game that I have installed in my computer, and it was just communicating to the internet to make sure I was authenticated with the server. Okay, what else? Okay, so what else we can configure in order to make our system more secure? Of course, we can do the BIOS UEFI password in order to ask users to authenticate. Okay, within our BIOS or UEFI firmware, on most of the motherboards, they offer power on passwords. Okay, and these are the types of passwords that we are allowed to configure. Okay, if we configure supervisor password, it's going to be required to change the set of configurations. Okay, you want to change any configuration within your motherboard, you will be required the supervisor password. Okay, user password, it's going to be required to your system to view the BIOS UEFI setup. Okay, the drive lock password is required to access hard drive. Okay, we're going to see more details about the drive lock password later on, but it's just basically a password to gain access to your hard disk drive. Now let's talk a little bit about file and folder encryption. Okay, within Windows, we have a very important thing that we can do within our folders, and which is basically just pretty much making sure they're encrypted file systems. Okay, this is the way you can just basically enable encrypted file system. So you need to have NTFS within your system. You also need to have a Windows license, which is the business or professional edition of Windows. If a folder is marked for encryption, every file created or copied to the folder will be encrypted. So if you have selected a folder and you have chosen to encrypt the folder, everything that is inside the folder will also be encrypted. Okay. Encrypted file remains encrypted if moved to an unencrypted folder. So even though you have an encrypted folder, if you decide to move the files within that folder to another folder, the files will still be encrypted. Okay? And how do you do that? Just right click and open property box, general tab, advanced attributes, and then you check the encrypt contents to secure data. All right? Okay. In File Explorer, encrypted files and folder names are displayed in green by default. Okay. It's just standard information here. How you can differentiate an encrypted file. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about BitLocker encryption. Okay. BitLocker encryption is just something amazing. All right. So back in the day, if you wanted to hack into someone's computer, you could just, try to find a way of taking hold of their hard drive, and you could just take their hard drive, connect it into another machine, and just from that new machine you could just open up the files that were inside the hard drive. Okay, so back in the day it was really easy if you wanted to get someone's files. Okay, but nowadays with the advancements in technology and BitLocker encryption, what happens is BitLocker is just basically pretty much a program that encrypts entire Windows volume, okay? And also any other volume on the drive, okay? So you have a drive, you can just pretty much encrypt the entire drive. No matter how many volumes you have inside that drive, they will also be encrypted, okay? And why is that for? You can restrict access by requiring one or two encryption keys. They work in partnership with file and folder encryption, okay? These are the ways that you can use your BitLocker encryption. First of them, you can do computer authentication. By computer authentication, you just need to have a chip on your motherboard that supports TPM. And TPM stands for Trusted Platform Module. Okay? So you have a motherboard with TPM that holds a BitLocker encryption key. If your hard drive is stolen, BitLocker won't allow access without it. Is that alright? So you have your motherboard supports TPM, you enable Trusted Platform Module, you have an encryption key within your motherboard. Without your encryption key within your motherboard, your hard drive cannot be accessed. Okay, that's pretty cool. So if someone takes hold of your hard drive, the data that is stored in your hard drive is just basically useless. Another one, the user authentication. This is the second option we have here on the list. Basically allows us to have a startup key stored on a USB drive. So you have a USB drive, you can just basically store your key within that USB drive. So you don't have the USB drive, you don't have the key, you're not allowed to read all the contents within your hard drive. Third one, computer and user authentication. You have a PIN or password required at every startup. You start up your system, you're going to be required to enter a PIN or a password. Okay? Or there might be both if you're using a multi-factor authentication. So those are the three ways, guys, that you can use BitLocker in order to protect your files and your drive, your entire drive in this case. Now let's talk a little bit about the firewalls. So we have two types of firewalls. We have what we call the hardware firewall, and we also have the software firewalls. So when we have a router that can serve as a firewall, we just basically call it a hardware firewall. And we can also call that a network-based firewall, and that is pretty much because it's located within the network. Okay, so the router is an element of the network. On the other hand, we also have the software firewall that can also be used and installed on computers. Okay, you have an endpoint computer, you have a firewall installed, you can call that a personal firewall. So those are the two types that we have, the NBF and the PF, the network-based firewall and the personal firewall. Within Windows, we have a default inbuilt Windows firewall, which is just basically a personal firewall that protects our computer. Okay, and which is cool about what is cool about Windows firewall is that it automatically configures when you set up your security level for a network. So when you're connecting to a network, you have the option to select if that network is public network, private, or I think it's organization or something like that. But you can just basically select one of these profiles for your network, and then your firewall is just basically going to use the rules that were previously configured into that specific profile. You can also customize the settings of your firewall if you wish. We're going to see a little bit more about that when we do the practice. Controlling access to folders and files. So basically, when you share a folder, you have a folder that you want all the computers within the same network to have access. What you basically do is you control the people that have access to that folder. So before you share that folder, you can just basically click into network access, and then you can just select the users that are going to be allowed to connect into that network share. All right. Types of user accounts, guys. So when we create user accounts within Windows, we can choose to create administrator accounts and standard user accounts. Okay. Of course, administrator account have access to the entire system, and it has the highest privileges within your machine. The administrator account is allowed to change other accounts as well. So the administrator account is allowed to delete, create, and modify user accounts. On the other hand, a standard user account would just basically have access to whatever the things we decide that they want to have access to. Okay. So basically, if you want someone to have another user account within your local machine, just never assign them administrator account privileges. And why is that? Because they can basically do whatever they want. Okay. They can even delete your own account if they want to. Okay. So just basically as a best practice, just make sure you have only one administrator account and all the other accounts are just standard accounts. And how do we create a user account? So this is a very easy procedure. By now you guys should be very familiar with it. But you just basically go to your computer management console, local users and groups, and then you can just manage your users from there. Okay. If you want to create a new user, you can just right click into it and then create new user. You can also modify existing users and so on and so forth. Now, how to map a network drive or network printer. Okay. So let's say you have a folder and you want to share to all the computers. Okay. So all the computers might want to have access to your share folder as a drive, and that will give them flexibility, and it's gonna make things easier to manage as well. And we're gonna see how to do that later on when we do the practice as well. But they can basically assign a share folder as a network drive. Okay. That basically uses the network file system. So we studied about network file system, DFS, and here's where they come to play. Okay, this is where they make things work. So NFS makes possible for files on the network to be accessed as easily as if they are stored on the local computer. Okay, NFS is a type of distributed file system, which is a system that shares files on the network. Okay. So DFS is basically the tool that allows us to share our folders, share our drives, and so on and so forth. So to protect confidential data from users on the network, what are the best practices that we should follow? We just basically disable file and printer sharing if we don't require them. We hide a share folder if we don't want anyone in the network to discover them automatically. And we also create local shares if we don't have to share the folders outside our local machine. Okay, so these are the best practices that we should follow in order to keep our system safe. Finally, we get to our practice lab. Okay, as you guys seen, this was a pretty quick lecture. However, I really want to do the prep with you guys. I need to show you a few things within Azure Labs, some cool things I want you guys to learn how to do. And in order to do this lab, I have just basically created a lab that you guys are also able to create within your virtual lab. And the lab just looks like this, basically. So I've designed this network topology using Packet Tracer, Cisco Packet Tracer. So for those of you guys doing some Cisco course, you should also be a little bit familiar with Cisco Packet Tracer. So what I've done here, I just basically designed our home network. Okay, I called it home net. Okay, and the network address is 192.168.10/24. Okay, so that's basically my home network. Okay, within this home network, I have created two Windows 10 Pro machines. One is going to be assigned the IP address 192.168.1.1, and the other one is going to be assigned the IP address 192.168.1.2. Okay, these two computers, they are connected to a switch, which is just basically going to allow a two-way communication between both of them. All right. So let's have a look at how does it work within our Azure Labs. So I have an Azure Lab environment here opened. Um, okay, I just maximize it. And I have my two machines here. One is my home PC1, as you guys can see here, and the other one is my home PC2. Okay. And Robert, what did you do to create this lab? So basically, I followed the steps that I told you guys how to do in previous lectures. I just basically created a new virtual machine, and then I assigned it the name Home PC1 for the first one and Home PC2 for the second one. I have uh, I have inserted our ISO image as the DVD drive. I have followed the installation procedure for Windows 10. I have installed Windows 10 Pro without the license key. I just skipped the license key as I suggested you guys to do for Project 1. And there you go. We have our lab fully set up. Now, how do we do the connection? Okay, when you create these two lab machines, they're just basically not connected. Okay, and how do you make sure they're connected? So you need to assign them a virtual switch. Okay, the virtual switch just basically works as a switch. Okay, and it's gonna make sure both of them are connected. So what did I do is I just created a virtual switch within our virtual switch manager right here on the right in actions menu. If you click virtual switch manager, you can just basically create a virtual switch. Okay, so I created a private virtual switch because I don't want these computers to have access to the internet. I don't want to have problems with the license and things like that. So I just created a private switch. Then you just click OK. Make sure you attach the virtual machines to that network adapter. You can just right click on your virtual machine and network adapter settings. You just select the network adapter that you want to use. So for my PC1, I'm using my home net switch. For my PC2, I'm also using my home net switch. Just click OK. Now I have just started my two machines, as you guys can see in here, my home PC1, my home PC2. So my home PC1, the main user is Bruce Wayne, and my main user on my PC2 is Tony Stark. I just created the passwords as being password01 just to follow our standard. And because these machines have been newly created, guys, we need to configure the IP address on both of them to make sure they are able to communicate. Okay. Right now, even though they're in the same virtual switch, IP communication will not occur, and that is because neither of them have an IP address to do so. Okay. So I just need to configure my IP address on both of these machines, and let's follow the what we have learned, and let's just click into our network sharing center, open network and internet settings. I'll just navigate to change connection properties. My IP settings, as you guys can see here, there's no IPv4 setting configured. It's currently configured to receive an IP address automatically from a DHCP server. Because we don't have a DHCP server, we need to configure it here. Okay, so I'll just set it to manual, and then it's an IPv4, and now we can just move on. So this is going to be 192.168.1.1. This is the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0 because it's /24. I don't need a a default gateway, guys, because we're not going to the internet here. We're just staying in a private connection, so we don't need to bother about the gateway. DNS, we also don't need to bother about that. Don't worry about it. Just skip it and just save the configuration, okay? Check one more settings and save again. So something missing here. Fortunately, it doesn't like it. Oops, manual. So it's in manual 192.168.11.255.255.0. Okay, so apparently it doesn't like. Oh yeah, it worked now. It's still automatic, huh? So let's try again one more time. So it's an IPv4 192.168.255.255.0. It's manual. Apparently it doesn't like it. Check one more settings. Okay, let's put a default gateway. Don't have to worry about it too much. But I'm gonna put 100. Still cannot save it. Doesn't like it. Okay, let's try it another way then. Just close it. Come to our network sharing center, internet settings. Let's just go to change adapter options. Let's go straight to the adapter. So you click here, properties, IPv4, properties, use the IP address. So it's going to be 192.168.1.1. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Just hit OK and close. All right. Now let's get to the other machine and just follow the same steps. Network, internet settings, change adapter options. Network adapter. Let's change. It's IPv4. 192.168.1.2. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0 and no default gateway. All right. Let's see how it goes now, guys. Awesome. So once you get that done, let's just open up command prompt here for a second and verify that everything has been correctly configured. So you can do just ipconfig command. And as you guys can see, the IP address have been configured on the first one. Let's do the same on the second one. ipconfig. All right. So now let's see if we have communication between these two computers. I'm just going to do a ping 6811. Not yet. So what we can do here is try to ping itself, see if it works. Okay, so it can ping itself. So apparently, guys, they cannot ping each other. Let's try to troubleshoot that. We can open a Windows firewall here to see if the firewall is blocking that. As we learned, the firewall is a very powerful tool to protect our Windows system. So let's just check our firewall, see what's going on. Start typing firewall, Windows firewall. So I'm just gonna make sure I'll turn off the firewall for now. Turn off, okay. Let's see how it goes now. I'll do the same on the other machine as well. Just Just want to make sure they can communicate. Not here. Make sure I turn it off on all the profiles. Click OK. So as you guys can see, they're off now. Let's see what we get. Let's try to ping one more time. So it can ping itself. Let's try to ping the other computer. Yeah, it's all good now. So as you guys can see, just the firewall was blocking the pings here. Okay. Okay. Now we're sure we have connectivity between these two computers here. Awesome. So what do we do next? What I have prepared for us to do within this lab. Let's see a few things that we can share between these two computers. Okay. And let's check whatever it is that we have to do first. So this is our lab. It's all set up now. We have a 192.168.1.1 computer running Windows 10 Pro, a 192.168.1.2 computer running Windows 10 Pro once again. The only thing here, guys, I have just installed these machines, and before I move on with the sharing resources, I just want to make sure they have the proper name. Okay. And in order to do that, I'll just right click into my startup menu, system, and from there I can check my computer name. And as you guys can see, it's a very complicated computer name. I'll just change it because I wanted to have a easy name that could easily be remembered for when I share my resources. Okay. And that is because basically when you share a resource, the computer name is part of the identifier of the share folder. Sorry. So just click next. I'll change this one to home PC1 as well, just to be the same as the virtual machine. I'll do the same on the other one as well. System. System info. Change. As you guys can see, I've done one procedure in the other one. I'm doing a slightly different procedure on the second one, but it's basically doing the same thing. I want to change the computer name. So I'll change this one here to home PC2. All right, just click OK. Every time you change your computer name, guys, you need to restart your system. So I'll just make sure I'll do this now. I'll restart this one, and I'll also restart the other one. Okay, just have to wait a little bit for them to restart. And while they restart, let's just check what are we going to do now. All right. So our Azure Labs is now fully configured. We can get started with the practice. Okay. So what are we going to do, which is related to this session? We're going to create two local user accounts, one for Nicole Kidman and one for Chris Hemsworth. We're going to use a secure password for them. And in order to do that, we're going to use this website called the Password Generator. And as you guys will see a little bit later on, we can actually select our requirements for a password, and our password generator would just basically randomly generate the passwords for us. Okay, so we don't have to waste too much time thinking about a password. Log in and log out with both new users and check the logs. We're also going to configure a password policy. We're going to configure a local policy to enable screen save, timeout, and protect it with a password. We're going to create a share of a new folder, and we're going to configure Windows Firewall to block HTTP traffic. Okay, so this is everything we're going to be doing inside our virtual lab. Okay, so for the two user accounts, I'll just do them in our PC1. You can do it in your PC1, PC2, doesn't matter. I'll just make sure I'll log in the other one as well. All right. Okay, so once here, guys, what do? We just basically click into our startup menu. If we start typing user accounts, we see that our search will just basically direct us to add, edit, or remove all the users. Okay, so if we use this console, we can just basically pretty much do what we need to do. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add users. If we come here to all the users, add someone else to this PC, we can just create a user account. Okay, so the name of the person using would be, so we want one for Nicole Kidman. So a password for Nicole Kidman. I'm just gonna use our password generator to generate this one. So let's have a look. How does it look like? So if I just open it up, contacting server. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So we basically select what we want to have in this password. So we basically select the complexity of the password that we want to have. So our password needs to be 16 characters in length, just to follow up with the book's best practices. It needs to include symbol, it needs to include numbers, it needs to include lowercase, it needs to include uppercase, exclude similar characters, exclude ambiguous. Yeah, I'll exclude ambiguous as well. Generate on your device. Do not send across the internet. So this is not going to be sent across the internet. So this is safe, pretty much. So let's just generate the password and see what happens. All right. So now we have a 16 character password that we can use for our user account. So I'll just copy this one. Okay. Let's see if it's the correct one. Yeah, exactly. I'll put it in here as well. For Windows 10, we have these very annoying questions that we need to select, and those are basically recovering password questions. So just basically go with select your first pet's name. So I can do dog. Just when you do it for real, guys, just make sure you don't put stupid answers. So I'll just create one here. So first name of my pet was, I don't know, dog underscore dog, whatever. Okay. Second, city born, Canberra. Name of your first school, grammar. Done. Let's see what happens next. Oh, good. Now we have our local user account for Nicole Kidman. Let's create another one now for Chris Hemsworth. It's following the same procedure. Hemsworth. Password will be, I'll put it in the same password, guys. It's not recommended. If you're doing this for real, just make sure you selected a different one. But I'll just do this for now because it's a little bit easier for me now. I have used the secure password generator. Actually, let's just open up another one. You can just have two here, one side by side. I'll open it again. Make sure I select the same things. Okay. 16 character, generate password. As you guys can see, it's a completely different password, and that is because it's random. Okay, so just take this one. This one will be for Chris Hemsworth. Here. Let me just make sure I copied the correct one. Yeah. The pet name, I don't know, let's do cat_cat, whatever. Childhood nickname, I don't know. So, first school you attended, grammar as well. Done. We have our two local accounts created. Now we are able to log in with these two users within this machine. Okay? What else can we do here? Now our next step is we need to log in and log out with both new users and check the logs. Okay, so let's do that and let's see what happens. Just gonna log out, sign out. Bruce Wayne. Just restart the machine. Yeah. So after the restart, we can see here that we have all of our user accounts available in our system. So I'm just gonna go with the first one, Nicole Kidman account. I used the complex password. Let me just open it up. So this one, we use this one for Nicole Kidman. Let's use that to log in. Oh no, it doesn't allow me to copy. Okay, I have to type it in manually. Okay, so question mark HGFY5 B9 KF minus Y A Z plus. Okay guys, so now that we logged in as Nicole Kidman into our home PC1, after we just sign out, and let's just sign back in as the admin. So I'm just going to sign in as Bruce Wayne here. Password 01. Just give it a few minutes more. Okay. So while it finishes, how do we do the share folder? So just going to delete this one here. Okay. So I'm just going to create a folder here called session 10. Okay. Just going to enter. I'm going to create a file inside of the session 10 folder. TXT file. This TXT file, will call it message. Inside this message file, just gonna say, hey, this is a shared folder. Close it, save it, go back to our session 10 folder, properties. You can just go to sharing tab, share. I'll select all the users that are going to be allowed to have access to this folder. I'm just going to type everyone, add, share. So as you guys can see here, it's now being shared, and the name, the network name that we're going to have to use to access these folder is / home PC2 session 10. Just click done. Close it. Just gonna open it up here. So in here, just gonna go to my File Explorer, maximize the window. If I come here to share inside my File Explorer, oops, I need to go to PC. So if I click these PC, I'll go to computer, and I have the option to map a network drive. If I click into map network drive, you can just now type the home PC2 / session 10. Reconnect that signing. Finish. Now I'm going to be prompted for a user that has access to session 10 folder. Okay, I'm just going to use the user that I have in my home PC2. So it was my Tony Stark, password 01. I'm going to be using him because his password is really easy to remember and type. Remember credentials, click OK. Done. As you guys can see here, now we have just created a mapped network drive, which refers to home PC2. And I have my message inside of my map network drive. Okay, just a reminder, this map network drive is actually a folder that is being shared by PC2. Okay, by my PC2. Now just following up with the logs. After we created Nicole Kidman's user and we have logged in and logged out with her user, if we go to our event viewer, we open it up, and if we click into our Windows logs, security, oops, try to maximize it. It's a bit slow. Yeah, so as you guys can see here, we actually have the logs. So basically when we logged in as Nicole Kidman, it keeps it was a log on, it was an audit success, and we can keep track of the time, the date, and all the information on that. Okay, so actually this one we were trying to sign in as Bruce Wayne, so let's check another one, see if we can find Nicole Kidman authentication here. Was it this one? I think it was this one, maybe. No. Just basically need to browse through here to see exactly what time I have signed in. This one, maybe? No. Just try to expand things here. User account created. Details. So I can see exactly who tried to log in, at what time he tried to log in. Bruce Wayne. Just gonna try to browse those that are logon events. Should be another one here. Yeah, so this one is when I try to log in as Chris Hemsworth. This is when I created the accounts, guys. So I can see the logs of the exact date and time that I have created the accounts. Say log on event. So can see all the details about my logon events. I had a special logon here. Security group policies when I configure the group policies. Okay. So once again, guys, make sure you keep track of your event viewer because it allows you to keep track of everyone that has logged in into your system as well. Now let's just finalize our today's Prac with the firewall configuration once again. So if we just open up our firewall, Windows Defender firewall with advanced security, if we just open that up, we can just basically pretty much configure inbound and outbound rules. In this case, I'm just going to create an outbound rule, create new rule. So I was telling you guys, I want to block HTTP, right? So if I come here to the options I have, I can just basically select that I want to block a specific program. I could block Internet Explorer, I could block Chrome, whatever web browser I have, or I could just basically pretty much just block the service by blocking a specific firewall port. In this case, I'm just going to block port 80 because it's the port related to HTTP. Click next. Block connection, domain on all the profiles. I can give it a name, block web, description, blocks HTTP. Click finish. As you guys can see, my policy is here. I can disable it. As it is here, it's enabled. Okay. Now, if I enable my firewall back, it's gonna block all traffic. Okay. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you try to do the steps I showed you here. I hope you also try to configure your user accounts, try to configure your firewall, try to share a folder, try to deal with the folder permissions, and so on and so forth. Okay? Alright, guys, so I'll see you next week. Have a nice one.